Washington Post op-ed, and joining us now is the one, the only, Dan Abrams, the founder of the Law and Crime Network, with us. Dan, give me your reaction.
Well, first of all, we have to say, wow. I mean, I'm sitting in a car watching this live stream, just like 3 million plus others have been on the Law and Crime Network. And the fact that Johnny Depp won on all 3 of the counts is pretty amazing. Remember, this is a case where he sued a publication in London where the standard is harder to win. And a judge came back and said, no, he believed that Johnny Depp was a, quote, wife beater on 12 of 14 counts. Now you have a jury here of 7 people, 5 men and 2 women, coming back and saying that Johnny Depp was defamed on all 3 of the counts. I mean, this, I think, is a real surprise to a lot of people. Now, I had talked about previously the possibility of both of them, quote unquote, winning. But I think this, quote, win for Amber Heard is really a token win. Putting aside the money, right? Putting aside the fact that it's $15 million for him, $2 million for her, that's not just the issue here. You know, it sounds like the issue the jurors had with the statement made by the lawyer for Johnny Depp was about the fact that she got together with her friends, effectively conspiring. So maybe they didn't believe that aspect of it. But it seems to me that the takeaway from this case is these jurors believed Johnny Depp and they didn't believe Amber Heard. I don't think there is any other way to interpret all of these verdicts together.
Yeah, and Dan, I think that's a really good point, because the statement in which the jurors found for Amber Heard was a longer one that Adam Waldman made, in which he said, you know, talking about Amber and her friends setting Johnny Depp up, and to your point saying, yeah, so Amber and her friends spilled a little wine, they roughed up the place, got their story straight under the direction of a lawyer and publicist, then placed a second call to 911. So perhaps the jurors didn't believe that that whole sort of collaboration, right, conspiring happened. Would you say that then this is not a total loss for Amber Heard, though?
I think it's a total loss for Amber Heard. I mean, it's better. I mean, it's better that she won that one aspect of it than if she didn't win anything. Her team can now try and spin it and suggest that it was, you know, both sides and people didn't believe either. But in the end, I mean, when we talk to these jurors, and I'm sure that some of them will talk, they're going to tell you, I feel confident that they're going to tell you that they simply did not believe Amber Heard. Because remember, it's not that she won on all 3 of the counts with regard to her countersuit either. I mean, if basically the jurors had come back and said he wins on all counts and she wins on all counts, then I'd have a different answer for you. But because they said he wins on all counts, but she just wins on this one issue, it seems to me that I don't see how those jurors believe on questions 2 and 3 with regard to Johnny Depp, not just the sexual violence claim, but the rest of it. I don't see how those jurors come back and say that he was defamed and that there was any sort of equivalency here. If he was defamed by that statement and Amber Heard did not win on those countersuits with regard to calling it a hoax, etc., these jurors clearly believed Johnny Depp and didn't believe Amber Heard.
Yeah, Dan, let me stop you here, because our 3.5 or so million viewers, 3 million viewers on YouTube, some people have some concerns. They want to make sure that you are not driving. Like so many people, I'm sure you stopped whatever you were doing when you heard a verdict was coming at 3 o'clock. You picked up your phone and dialed into YouTube, right?
I'm in the back seat of a car. I'm not actually driving.
Right. He's not at the wheel, guys. He's in the back seat of a car. He's safe. Everyone on the road is safe. Dan's a lawyer. He wouldn't endanger himself and others. Let's talk about the appeal. Is Amber Heard going to appeal this, Dan?
Absolutely, she's going to appeal it. And remember, people have to remember that when you're appealing primarily the legal rulings, right? So she will appeal some of the testimony that was allowed to come in. She will appeal some of the aspects of the judge's rulings in this case, the pretrial rulings, the ruling itself. She's going to challenge the fact that there was a camera in the courtroom. There's going to be a whole panoply of challenges that she's going to make about how unfair the trial was. And she'll also seek to reduce damages, right? In any appeal, the first thing you want to do, in addition to try and get a new trial, get it thrown out, is to try to reduce the damages and say that the jury made mistakes in how it assessed damages. I think that's her most likely chance of success here. But, you know, that's not going to be the win for her. I mean, this to me is just, it's basically an all-out win for Johnny Depp. And I do think that this gets him exactly what he wanted here, which is, I don't think he cares about the money, whether he ends up getting the money. She probably doesn't have that kind of money. This is vindication for Johnny Depp. A jury has said that he was defamed by these comments. And that means that these jurors believe that he was not a domestic abuser. And I think that allows him to get back his career in many ways. You could argue there were other reasons he'd lost much of his career, but this is a massive win for Johnny Depp, and I don't think it can be underestimated to characterize it that way.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, you touched on the damages, and let me remind our viewers again that the jury awarded Johnny Depp $15 million in damages, and they awarded Amber Heard $2 million for finding that one of the statements made by Johnny Depp's lawyers was defamatory. So a little bit of imbalance in what's owed. To your point, you know, Amber might not have that money. We've talked about this already, but what happens to her in this case? She doesn't have the $15 million for damages.
Well, we'll see. You know, look, there's going to be a lot of appeals. We're a long way from the final judgment being issued in this case, and you know, Johnny Depp pursuing the damages against her. Well, let's see what happens there before we say that Amber Heard is going to have to declare bankruptcy. You know, which is potentially something that could happen in the end if she owed this kind of money and simply can't pay it. She could also try and raise money through donations, etc., from other people based on the reaction to this trial. I'm not sure that would be particularly successful. But, you know, I think we're a little ways away from knowing exactly how much she's going to have to pay and how she's going to get that money.
Let's talk about Johnny Depp for a second, because a little bit before we found out that there was a verdict, we did confirm that he was not going to be here. There had been a lot of speculation. We know he's been playing rock shows the last 3 nights in the UK. We knew there was a possibility he'd stay there. In fact, his team confirmed he would be staying there and watching the verdict from there. Any thoughts on him not being present for the verdict?
You know, this is not a criminal case. I think that people are sort of conflating this with a criminal trial. People say, how could he not be there? You know, this is a civil case for damages. You could argue, okay, does he not care enough to be there? I don't know. I mean, I don't view it as particularly significant that when it comes to a verdict that could take many days, that he decided he didn't want to wait. That's really more, from my perspective, a PR issue than it is a legal question. And the dollars, okay, but that didn't happen.
I think.
And so.
Okay, you're back. Dan, can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay, so you brought up really it's more of a PR question, and so no, that's okay. We get it. Lots going on. Listen, so you said, yeah, that's a PR question about Depp not being here. So I have another PR question for you, because you watch so many of these high-profile trials, and yes, this is not a criminal trial, but we've seen a lot of high-profile civil trials. We know that these stars' reputations, you know, what was left of them essentially were at stake. Amber Heard's in the courtroom. We know both legal teams are going to come out. Do you think Amber Heard is going to address the media at all?
I don't think, with all those Johnny Depp fans out there, she wants to hold a press conference where people start yelling at her and those sound bites end up showing. If I were her PR team, I would let the lawyers for Amber Heard make statements. I wouldn't have her. I'd have her sit down with someone, you know, a relatively favorable journalist sometime, you know, tomorrow, next day, whenever, to give her statement. I don't think she wants the sound bites of her, you know, talking about how upset she is, about the disappointed she is, and people yelling at her and jeering at her. But I'd expect that both sides' lawyers would likely make themselves available to the media right there after the case. And of course, the most interesting part is going to be talking to the jurors if and when they'll talk.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that most of us be talking to. Yeah.
Absolutely. Dan, thank you so much for dialing in and sharing your response with us, your reactions to this big pivotal moment after more than 6 weeks of covering this trial. We thank you so much. Maybe we'll check in with you later. But for now, I want to go right to Linda in the studio. She has a statement from Johnny Depp, his reaction to the verdict. Linda.
Oh, my goodness. I'm actually trying to find it right now, Stacey, so just give me 1 second.